Let's bring in our next guest. You might know him on Twitter as Absolutely Hammered. It's AH_pod. Check out his work. His name is Chris Jones, or as he said, I can introduce him as that piece of shit, Chris. But Absolutely Hammered joins the show. Chris, thanks for hopping on with us today, man. Appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, I hear you fine. Can you guys hear me?
Okay, there we
Woohoo!
go. Welcome in, buddy.
Nice to have you here.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I mean, I got to hear some nice things about me since this delay, so that was cool.
You, in terms of Phillies Twitter and like accounts and whatnot, you're absolutely one of my favorite accounts to follow. You do a lot
For
of great
sure.
memes and videos, and I know you're buddies with our own John Foley. So it's great to have you on the show. We were talking about it, Chris. Scotty Jetpacks, a non-roster invitee to camp. Your thoughts?
Well, I guess it's his year again for the 5th time, right? I mean, why not take the shortcut and just go get Whit Merrifield, who's already good and the same thing. The guy they wanted Kingery to be, I think. It'll be fun, like always.
Yeah, I think the hope and dream with when Matt Klentak gave him that wonderful deal was that he was going to become our Whit Merrifield, and it never panned out. But we'll see.
Every time he comes
I'd
to
be lying
spring,
if I
he
said
has
I'm not
his
going to
army.
pay attention. Yeah. I mean, I'm going to pay attention to him in spring training. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, you kind of have to, because if he did finally figure it out, that would be great. But like you guys were saying, he's got to be better than Rodolfo Castro, and it's like, how can you not be, you know?
Yeah. Well, I'm curious to know, Chris, where you are on prospects, because we have talked a lot on the show about the fact that people may often overhype prospects, Phillies prospects specifically. And then, of course, Prospectus drops a list. We only have one on that top 100 list. It's just Andrew Painter, who's not even going to be able to play this year. Are you on the bandwagon of protect the prospects at all costs, or are you one that's understanding, hey, we've had prospects in the past that haven't panned out? If there's an opportunity that opens that's a better deal, take the deal. Prospects go.
Yeah, I stopped prospect hugging last season, or 2022, sorry, because my main concern was I didn't want to start trading our best prospects before we showed that we could actually make it to the playoffs. So, like, once that happened, like, once we made that World Series run, I do not care. Like, I will pack Mick Abel up myself. But again, as long as it's responsible, I guess. But the longer it goes with this boring offseason, the more I'm ready to just be like, I don't care. Trade whatever. Let's figure it out.
Yeah, so
like
Chris,
it.
what are your thoughts on this offseason? I know you're a big Robert Stevenson guy, much like us. If they did that, I would consider it, a boring but successful offseason. And then I think you use the trade deadline to upgrade whatever hole that might be, if it's outfield or possibly that sixth starter again. What are your thoughts on this quasi-boring offseason?
I go back and forth because I know it doesn't seem like it, but I try to be rational. And so, like, one day I'm freaking out because I'm like, but then I just have to look around. Nothing else is happening, really. I mean, so then my rational side of me is like, all right, nothing's happening. Dave is waiting around like everybody else. And then the next day I'm freaking out again. It's just, when you compare it to something like the Harper off season, they got so much done beforehand before, we had to just focus on waiting for Harper. And so that, at first I was like, it can't be as bad as the Harper one, but I feel like it's surpassed that at this point. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is. I feel like we kind of all have those moments where it ebbs and flows. One minute you're like panicking a little bit. The next minute you're understanding, okay, nobody else is really doing anything major. It's calmed down at this point. Obviously, the Dodgers, whole different story there. But something else that we've heard as of recent, Rob Thompson's comments talking about leadoff. Now, we gave our projected starting lineups that we would want for the batting order. Rob came out and cleared the air. He said, look, we've got a lot of options at leadoff with Trey and Stott, but at this point, I don't think anybody can argue the fact that we've won a lot of games with Schwarber in the leadoff spot and scored a lot of runs with him in the leadoff spot. Kyle Schwarber stays at the leadoff spot. Are you for this, or are you one that was kind of open to seeing something different, maybe Trey Turner or Bryson Stott at the leadoff spot instead?
Last season, I was still kind of like, please push Kyle back. But as it went on, and he just seems to do best there, and Rob really wants him there, and Kyle seems comfortable there, I'm just like, I don't care anymore. Like, if that is what is actually going to work, then I'm down for it. He gets on base a lot, and he's hitting behind the kids who get on base a decent amount. So it's not the worst thing in the world, and especially if you're probably going to be having Turner at second.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think when you have Rojas ninth and then kind of use it, if he can get on base a little bit, get that speed on the base path. I'm like you, Chris. I've just kind of resigned to it. I'm like, whatever. I can't fight this fight forever. I don't agree with it, but the results are there and
Plus,
it's been
Kyle said
successful.
he wants to be at the leadoff spot.
Yeah, it's just like I don't have that fight left in me anymore. I know I'm going to lose. But Chris, I know you tuned in yesterday to Jonathan Papelbon. The reason we got him on, one was I know he's a character. Most of the responses on social media were like, "Why the f are you having this guy on?" What were your thoughts on the interview? In particular, his love of Carlos Ruiz, who's the most adorable Philly that's ever Phillied, and his thoughts on Ruben Amaro Jr. and keeping this beef going.
When I saw you guys were having him on, I couldn't wait because I knew there'd be at least like a couple moments where he's just gonna say something crazy. I didn't think he'd go after Rube like he did. Like I know he doesn't like him, but I didn't think he would just come out and say it. But I should have known better, I guess.
Yeah.
That was pretty funny. And then Ruben responding and just saying Pat pitched well. That was pretty funny.
That was classy
It
by
was
Rube to
great.
take the high road.
And
And
it
but
felt almost like, go ahead.
what I wanted to hear was about Chooch because you hear about how much every pitcher loves Chooch, and I never really saw anything out there with Papelbon. And if anybody maybe didn't get along with it, it might be him. And of course, it was what you'd expect. Chooch is just the most lovable person on the planet.
Chickens, I've got chickens.
Right. Panamanian redneck, that's all. But it was great because I know we talked afterwards about how it was nice to see John in a different light, kind of. I feel like he surprised a lot of people with his responses and how he was talking about his experiences and talking about Bryce Harper, clearing the air on a lot of things. And it just felt very mature and professional in what he was saying, which is kind of different than what we saw as him as the player. So for that reason, I think we were surprised. What was your thoughts on just kind of overall how John just talked through Bryce, his experiences, Chooch, stretching naked, everything that we learned in yesterday's discussion, since you, of course, were a part of that as well?
Oh man, that was the stretching naked thing. Definitely caught me off guard. But at that point in the interview, I had realized he really is just the guy I think he is. So he's just a nutball. It was surprising to hear him say that if he gave it one more run, he'd come to Philly to win. And I do believe that he's not pandering to us. I think he came here to win, and he probably won another shot with Bryce and to get it done. But that was surprising.
Yeah, I don't think he's one to pander. I think he just says what he thinks. Chris, Hector Neris was one of our four wanted bullpen names. I think he removed himself from that list yesterday, if the reports are accurate, that he's looking for 3 years, $50 million. Your thoughts?
I mean, it was kind of a no for me before he asked for all that money, just because
Okay.
he's going to be 35 and like his numbers still look good, but he's losing velocity, and I feel like he's one of those. He comes here, signs that 2 or 3 year deal he wants for what 18 million a year, I think. I think he would terrify me coming here. I don't think it would work out, especially when I see velocity dipping like that. I just get nervous. I'm like, nope.
So who is your bullpen want list? I know you're big on Stevenson. Anybody else out there kind of catch your wants and desires here with the bullpen arm?
Yeah, I mean, I gave up on Stevenson even though I want him because I don't know if you guys saw today, Matt Gelb of The Athletic, he did a piece today and he flat out said Jordan Hicks and the Phillies had mutual interest. But like we thought, the Giants offered him a spot to start. So that was the difference breaker. And he went on to say that, that's Dave's typical mold for a reliever. He wants fast thrower, can go multiple innings. So now I think you just got to go back to another thing Gelb said at the start of the season. He identified early Phil Maton because that guy does go multiple innings. He doesn't throw fast, but he strikes people out. So I
Yeah,
guess
he
I'm
was
hoping
one of
for
our
Phil
four.
Maton at this point.
I got to be honest, it doesn't like thrill me, but
Yeah.
it's solid, like I'm not doing cartwheels outside around the block, but I acknowledge it's a solid baseball move.
Are there any specific names, Chris, that you would be interested in? Because we've kind of been on the kind of thinking at this point, we don't really know who's out there that makes sense in terms of free agents specifically, but who makes sense for the Phillies right now that has you jumping with excitement when you hear the name. I mean, Hector Neris, Jordan Hicks would have been great, but there's not a lot of names left. Which player would you feel like would make a great addition for the Phillies if they were to make a move?
It's so hard at this point because I think after they kind of gave Rojas, not, they didn't give him the job, but then they started backing off on the whole Dombrowski saying it wasn't guaranteed. They were like, well, this and that. I feel like they need some type of insurance for him. I know Pache is going to be on the roster too, like Tyler said. and I guess he's supposed to be the insurance. I don't feel comfortable with that, so I'd like if they could, bolster that up. And they need starting pitching depth. It's like any name I would think of. Like early on, I thought maybe they would just go for a left fielder, and I thought Jorge Soler might be one you can get, for a couple years, see how it works out. But I think I think they're going to end up with Martian left, Rojas in center, at least to start. And then if it's so bad, they just address it at the deadline.
I'm kind of down so bad in boredom. I'm going, hey, just get Tommy Pham. Like, he's a guy that seems to show up in the postseason. He's a total whack job and, not that sexy in the regular season. But he seems to have those postseason, like, onions a little bit. I don't know. That's how bad I'm down.
How about Jock Peterson?
Whatever happened to him? What the fuck was that?
We
He was
had
a Philly
heard the
for
Blue
5
Jays
minutes.
for 5 whole minutes. Then we heard the Blue Jays were apparently interested, and then we still haven't heard anything else. But
Yeah.
so bizarre. But the one other thing I do want to talk about with you, Chris, that was bizarre. This happened many, many years ago. As we talk about former Phillies that removed themselves. This one removed himself from the game. John Kruk. Now, the video that went viral, Major League Baseball, was going through players' retirement and how their final send off, and we all remember at different points that moment. Now, for John Kruk, when he had that slump, couldn't get a hit, finally gets a hit in the first inning, hits a single, and then just disappears for the rest of the game. Frank Thomas was pinch hitter for him. Everyone's like, where is he? He was home, drove home, got dressed, drove home, and then announced later, I'm retiring, as he finished his lifetime with a batting average exactly at 300. Classic John. When you're talking about legendary former Phillies in that moment, take us through how you felt when you kind of had, I've seen that circulate again, seeing that send-off circulate again, reactions of the reminder of, I'm retiring from John Kruk.
It's so on brand for him. I love it so much. Kruk he's been so good on the broadcast. And it's just like, I didn't even know that story originally. I had just never heard it. And I was like, you know what? That makes sense. That is something he would do. And I appreciate him for it. That's how I'd want to go out. When you're done, you're done.
Yeah, he knew it. And knowing John, he probably knew he was at 300 and just said, yep, no, I'm good. I'm going to end my career like this.
Well, hey,
Chris,
Jose
it's been a lot
Reyes
of
did
fun
that for the batting title. So
Yeah, that's true. I forgot about that. Chris, it's been a lot of fun having you on. Appreciate your time. You can follow Chris on Twitter at AH_pod. He does a lot of Phillies work with a couple other people in town. You can always catch some great videos and memes off of his account. Very entertaining Phillies follow. We appreciate you hopping on.